The very first story, and government has revised downwards the growth forecast for the country for 2015. Now, from a projected growth rate of 3.9%, the economy is now expected to grow by some 3.5%. Finance Minister Seth Terkper says government is also expected to spend much more than initially projected for the 2015 fiscal year.
To the minister, the request is to help the continuation of the transformation agenda in order to maintain the recent gains in economic growth and macro stability.
We are presenting this mid-year review and the supplementary estimates which I just tabled to continue pursuing our transformation agenda, maintain the recent gains in our growth and macroeconomic stability agenda, and entrench our lower middle income country status. The short-term and more structural elements are designed to manage issues such as high foreign finance capital expenditure due to exchange rates, rising inflation, and volatilities in the market.
Despite the gains pointed out by the finance minister, inflation remained high, with interest rate also shooting up by 5%.
As noted, the Ghana Statistical Service revised the GDP methodology, and this has marginally affected the nominal and real GDP figures for 2007 to 2014. Consequently, provisional growth of GDP in 2014 was 4%. We'll be providing information on this, and the screen shows the information from 2007, old and new GDP figures. On interest rates, the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana raised the monetary policy rate by a cumulative 5 percentage points from 16% in 2013 to 21% in 2014. This was broadly in line with the tight monetary policy of the bank during the year to deal with the high inflation expectations and depreciation of the currency.
Public debt, Mr. Terkper said, has risen to 79.6 billion Ghana cedis from the 53.1 billion Ghana cedis.
Debt stock, which stood at 53.1 billion, or 24.5 billion US dollars, as at end December 2013, increased to 79.6 billion Ghana cedis, or 24.8 billion Ghana cedis, as at the end of 2014. Mr. Speaker, the depreciation effect is obvious, as the foreign currency component rose by less than $1 billion US.
Emmanuel, Parliament House, Accra.
Meanwhile, the minority in Parliament has described the state of the country's economy as one headed for doom. Minority spokesperson on finance, Dr. Anthony Akotose, says the country's indebtedness is one that reflects the poor managerial abilities of the current government. He adds that though the city's appreciation in recent time is good news, it is too early for government to seek to claim a stabilization of the economy. Dr. Akotose was speaking at a media briefing shortly after the finance minister's mid-year review presentation.
Speaking to the media after the supplementary budget and the 2015 budget review, the minority spokesperson on finance said Ghana is heading towards doom at the rate the country's debt is ballooning.
We went there in 2001 and got out in 2004. We can't go there again. We just will be broke. Nobody will help us. So let's not anybody feel that we are highly indebted. In fact, now the IMF uses the language high-risk, distressed country. That 70% threshold is not a law, but you feel it when you are there. If you borrow more, there are consequences. It's as simple as that. And so if the city appears to be doing well, but most people should be careful when they say, because the city is doing well, we are doing okay. It's a double-edged sword. Rapid appreciation could also lead to a decline in the exports of some commodities. So some manufacturers could be suffering because your price is relatively higher. How it affects us, we will determine. The fiscal deficit has not improved. In fact, if you listen carefully, we are now going from 6.5% to 7.3%. It means it is getting worse.
A member of the minority finance team, Kweku Kwating, accused the finance minister of throwing dust into the eyes of Ghanaians.
The minister says along the year, government intends to reduce the amount to be set aside for stabilization fund. After telling us that we are doing well, that was the first piece of bad news. Budget deficit. In ordinary man's language, it is spending on credit. After telling us that we are doing well, the minister says, we thought we were going to spend about 6.5% of GDP. We'll be spending that on credit, but given the way things are going, we think it will be worse. Total expenditure, the amount of money government spends on us. Government said at the beginning of the year, I'll be spending something in the neighborhood of 39 billion Ghana cedis. Today, the minister came and said, no, I can't spend that much on you people. I can only spend 37.9 billion. That is to say 1.2 billion cedis. Government says it's not going to spend that amount on us any longer. After telling us that I won't do this for you, I won't do this, I won't do that, now government says, but I need more money. And then the summary of all that, as a nation, we are on course. I leave the judgment to you.
According to the minority, it will soon come up with a true review of the 2015 budget.
Let's take you live now to Parliament, where we are told that sitting has been suspended following a power outage in the House. Correspondent Elton Jombobe is there and joins us live now over the telephone. So, Elton, tell us much more about this decision to suspend sitting just because of a power outage.
Well, the lights went off 10 minutes to midday, and the First Deputy Speaker of Parliament, who was presiding, suspended sitting for 15 minutes. Now, as I speak to you right now, sitting is still in suspension until power is restored. The Chamber of Parliament is in total darkness. Members of Parliament are out of the chamber. Some at the coffee area. We do not know the reason for the blackout, because I do know that Parliament has a standby generator. In the midst of this darkness, the standby generator is also not working. So obviously you can tell that this power outage is coming from the main source. And that is what we are experiencing now. No word has come from the parliamentary staff as to the reason behind this total blackout we are experiencing in Parliament. This is not the first time. It happened a couple of times. The last time this issue happened, the Speaker announced on the floor that anytime they are considering a very sensitive matter, they will put on their standby generator to avoid some of these issues. But as it happens now, the Parliament House is in darkness. There's no light, and that has stopped proceedings on the floor and work of Parliament. But let me just speak to a member who is out of the chamber now, Justice Joapia, the deputy ranking member on the Works and Housing Committee. Honorable, this must be very embarrassing for you.
Very embarrassing in the sense that we have never seen such a thing before. I mean, the floor of the House, have blackout. How can we do government business? You see, we have to get good energy policies. Ever since this administration took over office, we have never had peace in this country in terms of energy policy. Unnecessary power outages. And this is, I don't know how to describe it. It is retarding our progress in the floor of the House. We can't do government business. And we are there to enact laws, to approve basic laws. We have to discuss. Yesterday, the finance minister came out, the mid-year review budget, and we have to discuss it now. And this is very, very important. Ghanaians want to know where our money is going. You see, if we don't have good policies on energy, how can we work? Total blackout in the floor of the House. How can?
Have you been told why your generator, for instance, is not working?
I learned there's no petrol generator. That's what we told. There's no diesel generator. How can we run such a country? A country of Ghana with all the material resources, and we are suffering. And we can't do government business. And as of now, almost 1 hour now, we can't just get in. There isn't any Nobody's telling us anything. The speaker has left, and we are also here. What is going on in this country? We have to be very serious in this country. In fact, what has happened today, I've never seen such a thing before. It's unprecedented in the history of this country.
Justice Joe Appiah is a deputy ranking member on the Western House and the Committee of Parliament, and so that is the situation we are experiencing right now. Total blackout. We are awaiting the restoration of power so that proceedings for today can go on. Looking at the number of items they have on the other paper, it doesn't look like they will adjourn anytime soon.
I see.
Proceedings today might run into the evening.
So, Elton, can you tell us what really we have on the order paper? What are the things we're supposed to consider this morning?
Well, there are some laws that Parliament will have to approve of it. They will take some presentation of some papers will also be taken on the floor. So basically, they will be approving some laws, some outstanding businesses that have been carried through will also be considered.
We've heard talk about the Ministry of Education making some claims and saying a few things in Parliament. Can you tell us much more about that?
Well, the question was for the Minister of Education to explain why feeding grants to the 3 northern regions have not been paid since 2014. The Member of Parliament for Bumpurugu, Lamnet, who asked that particular question. But before the response would come, the Speaker read a communication signed by the Chief Director of the Ministry of Education. And in that communication, he told Parliament the Ministry's inability to respond to this particular question because feeding grants is handled by the Scholarship Secretariat under the Office of the President. So the communication essentially told Parliament to redirect the question to the Scholarship Secretariat so that they could come and respond to this particular question.
Many thanks for your time, Parliamentary correspondent Elton John Brobe. We're taking a break here on News Today. We'll be back shortly with Samuel. Don't go away. You're welcome back from that break. Now, intellectuals in Ghana are being urged to offer their services to the public and participate more in the political space. Former Ekiti State Governor in Nigeria, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, says the increasing demands of globalization requires enlightened, thoughtful people who would add value to the society. Now, speaking at the 3rd Atamils Memorial Lecture, Dr. Fayemi said the often held perception by many intellectuals that politics is a dirty game should be discarded.
Challenge is therefore one of communication. The purpose of public intellect is to translate rarefied ideas into the vernacular and non-verbal communication of the masses, to bring these ideas into the mainstream without being condescending. As political actors, intellectuals must take ideological arguments and translate them into tangible policy options that demonstrably have an impact on the lives of ordinary people. And as I say, every so often, work with the people and not for the people. Intellectuals are sometimes derided for being idealistic, and contemporary public discourse entertains the dichotomy between the ideal and the practical, with intellectuals frequently lampooned for being unrealistic dreamers. I still believe that this dichotomy is false, where conventional wisdom insists that the ideal and the practical are at odds. Coming from an outward, to think as men of action and act as men of thought, thereby postulating the complementarity of ideal and practice.
So what do Ghanaian politicians make of the generally held perception that intellectuals are reluctant to enter the political space? We saw the views of former finance minister under the Kufuor administration, Yao Osafo-Maafo, and NDC General Secretary Johnson Esiedun-Ketia.
It's not true. Indeed, from the speaker, a lot of our leaders have been intellectuals, starting from Kwame Nkrumah. They are very brilliant, and they have their own passion, either the socialist line or the capitalist line. I believe that people you need intellectuals in politics because they tend to bring principles into the game. And at the end of the day, we can only sustain our democracy if we are principled.
It's the case that politicians don't have any option because the level of enlightenment that we are in society now, you cannot take actions that you have not thought through and you cannot be sitting there thinking without taking action. So this is the era of thoughtful action, and the lecturer was apt in that.
And members of parliament have been paying tribute to former President John Evans Atta Mills. Members of his family and the ruling NDC are commemorating the 3rd anniversary of his death this week. In Parliament, lawmakers from both sides of the House lauded Professor Mills' humility and his contribution to national development.
The university in the Brown-Harford or Volta region could be named after Professor Mills as Professor Mills University. And I also further suggest that the UDS could be named after President Jerry Rawlings. And the university in Takwa, could be named after President Kufuor. And I think that we should begin to honor them whilst they live, instead of just eulogizing them when they are dead.
The many things that are being said in honor of our late President, Professor Atta Mills. Mr. Speaker, he was the first from the central region to ascend the highest throne as President of the Republic. And indeed, Mr. Speaker, his posture as a man of peace was not in doubt with respect to his relationship with people across the political divide. And Mr. Speaker, by that posture, the former president demonstrated that we are all of the same stock, partakers of the same nature, and the sharers in the same hope. And although distinctions exist amongst us as a result of our own political inclination, yet we ought not allow such distinctions to create sharp division that will lead to a destabilization of this country.
Former President John Atta Mills was a man who was noted for his modesty and simplicity, cannot be overemphasized. That he was deeply religious cannot also be blown out of proportion. Mr. Speaker, it is no hyperbole to say that the President was a keen sportsman and sports administrator. As a person who also wished the country very, very well. But, Mr. Speaker, if the truth must be told, sometimes people say some things about people who have passed on as if they want to rewrite history. And I think we should be all careful. We are human after all. All of us are human after all. Mr. Speaker, for those of us who are grassroots, what we say about our late president is that Professor Mills was too much. He was too much. You know, he meant a lot to many, many people. He was a man of varied and various qualities, conduct, and he was a very principled person who had values that exhibited themselves in various ways of conduct.
Ghana has been ranked 7th among a list of dirty countries in the world. Now, the survey by a joint monitoring program report places Ghana 3 places above its previous position of the 10th dirtiest country in the world. Now, well, on the back of this, Central Regional Correspondent Richard Kojunyako reports of a situation in the Central Region where the Cape Coast metropolis has been overwhelmed with mountains of garbage. Well, he joins us now over the telephone with much more details on that particular one. So, Richard, tell us much more about the situation in Cape Coast.
Well, the city is currently engulfed by filth. There are mountains of garbage. The piles are undescribable. We cannot describe them. People are sitting in them and they are buying and selling. City authorities look unconcerned. According to them, they are dialoguing with Zoom Lion, the waste management company, to lift all of these garbage to the waste disposal site. But according to them, Zoom Lion has only one vehicle, and the vehicle is not even currently functioning, and so it has left some of the garbage on the street. Wherever you pass, at every corner in Cape Coast, there are heaps of garbage that are on the street, and people fear that there might be a cholera epidemic that will spring up in Cape Coast, and so that is why residents fear that something should untoward would happen, and city authorities should be able to address this kind of problem.
Richard, let me ask you, obviously we all know that Cape Coast is a site for many tourists, usually when they do get into the country, and I'm asking, how much of a problem is this going to pose to that particular situation? Or is it that probably the garbage there has also become some sort of tourist attraction?
Well, it's unthinkable, and many residents here is worried about the situation because the stench emanating from the heaps of garbage is overpowering. People cannot even bear the stench. But if you go to the market, you know Cape Coast, because of the construction of the Kodokraba market, the place is already choked. The central business district is already choked. And people do not even, now the garbage that have been piled, they are competing with human beings and the traders for space. And so tourists would not have any good name to give to Cape Coast when they arrive here, because they will be greeted with the heaps of garbage that are falling on the street and people are not doing anything about it.
Do we have any idea when this filth or this garbage might be collected?
Well, according to the Cape Coast Metropolitan Assembly, I spoke with the mayor for Cape Coast, Priscilla Ahinokwanchi, and she told me that they would have terminated the contract of Zoom Lion if they were the ones that employ Zoom Lion, because they've written several letters to them and they are expecting that they will give them feedback as to why they have failed woefully to lift the garbage to the waste disposal side. But all of these things have fallen on deaf ears, and so they are now dialoguing and they are praying that the residents will help in fighting what has become an albatross on the neck of the metropolis. They want residents to help in sanitizing the environment by being responsible when they collect garbage, where they put them and all of that.
Many thanks for your time, Richard Kojunyako, and that was our Central Regional Correspondent bringing us the very latest from that region. To some other stories now, and the police administration says the eviction notice to officers occupying one of its structures in Tema is non-negotiable. The service says the structure, known as Militia House, is in such a terrible shape it could collapse at any time. But the over 500 police personnel occupying the building say their employer has failed to make reasonable alternative arrangements for them. Matilda Womega visited Militia House and now reports.
The two-story building referred to as Militia House is located in Community 2, Thema. The over 500 personnel have been living here for more than 6 years. Portions of the building, built in the 70s, have developed deep cracks, with the roofs in tatters. Electrical cables could be seen loosely hanging on the walls. The situation becomes miserable whenever it rains. Aside the danger this building poses to occupants, there are no toilets or bathrooms. The occupants therefore rely on this makeshift structure as their bathroom, while relying on public toilets as their place of convenience. Some of the officers, who would rather not have their faces shown for fear of victimization, say, though they agree the structure is unsafe, they have to manage to live in there for years.
When we were coming here, they told us that here's a temporary. So by all means, we will move here, but they haven't made any provision for us.
Okay. So now that they're asking you to leave, have they given you money? Are you ready to move out now?
Madam, I don't have money to go and rent because you know the condition of Tema. Yeah, I can't use 6,000, 7,000, go and rent a room for just 2 years. If they can get us a place a new place that we can all go and stay there or live there. I think that one will be better for us.
So what we are requiring from them is just to grant us some money from the welfare coffers. At least if they can even give us half of it, we can push it up and then rent our own accommodation.
But the Tema Regional Police Command says the directive is in the interest of the personnel and that the officers need to move.
We have not police on our records. We have not officially allocated Militia House for any police personnel to stay there, and so how they got there we don't know. But then when we got to know that they are living there, we have asked not just once, not twice, several times from one commander to the other that they move from the place. So even this very recent signal that we have sent out for personnel leaving there to vacate their place, but then the most important thing is that that Militia House is just not right, it's not habitable for police personnel or even any other person to live there.
She adds that though the police administration has no relocation plan for the families, the administration will refund monies used in renting new apartments.
As it is now, it doesn't look like there's any accommodation anywhere where we can put these personnel living in the Militia House to go and put up with in the interim. That is why we have said that go look for a place yourself. Inform administration you have found a place, and administration is very ready to pay for you.
Many of them are willing to move out, but the issue is the money in bulk to pay for their rent.
There's a procedure that we work it. Ordinarily, you're supposed to be given the police barracks to stay, but if you don't find yourself in a thing like that, we have always advised or suggested, which is a procedure, that you get a place, pay the upfront, and then we remit you later in salaries. That's like 20% of your basic salary, depending on your rank.
ASP Juliana Obey is however unable to say if occupants will be forcefully evicted from the building. Matilda Pomaga for Joy News, Tema.
Siska, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You're looking good.
Thank you. You are looking good. Interesting shirt.
What do you have in business?
Yes, coming up in business, Finance Minister Seth Terkper says the Export-Import Bank, or Exim Bank, will be operational in 2016. He says a draft bill has been prepared for consideration by Cabinet and will be submitted to Parliament in due course. The bank is expected to address the challenge of long-term credit for exporters. President of Ghana Union of Traders Association, George Ofori, says it is long overdue.
Establishment of the Exim Bank is in the right direction, but it's long overdue because I said earlier on that our leaders know exactly that it is only by export of non-traditional and traditional commodities that will be able to let Ghana earn the needed foreign exchange to be able to balance our trade deficit. And so if for a long time this is the time that we are going to put before Parliament for the establishment of the Exim Bank, that's why I'm saying that it is long overdue. Even though it will solve if it comes, it will solve the problem for exporters. But much sensitization and educational programs must also be done for importers who also import from other countries to be able to export, and then when they get the needed foreign exchange out there, they can also use that to import to their country.
The minority in Parliament is claiming that government intends to impose fresh levies on petroleum products. It says a new bill being considered by Parliament is to introduce a number of taxes, including the recovery margin. Minority spokesperson on finance, Dr. Anthony Oseyakoto, told Joy News the margin will eventually increase the tax component on petroleum products.
We know that the government has been talking about deregulation. Deregulation is ongoing. The current law allows the NPA to set the ceiling. But if you listen to government, it's as if the BDCs are the ones supposed to do it. That would be illegal. Because as we speak, in front of the subsidiary legislation, there's an attempt for government to change the formula. In fact, let me be specific. There's an attempt to increase levies on petroleum prices, something called a recovery margin. We used to call it social impact mitigating levy. That is on the proposal. Parliament has not approved it yet. So I don't know what the BDCs and OMCs are talking about. NPA is still the legal entity that is setting the ceiling, and they can adjust within. It is good that we have seen an adjustment, but is that a true quantitative adjustment? If the order is about 25%, you do 15, then it's not symmetric. When it goes up, you go all the way up. When it goes down, you go in between. But the reality is that the BDCs are owed.
Government has revised total petroleum receipts for 2015 downwards from 4.2 billion cedis to 1.8 billion cedis. This is 58% lower than the 2015 budget target and should see a drop in revenue projections for the year. Minister for Energy and Petroleum Emmanuel Kofi Boa, however, tells Joy Business there's still hope for a rebound.
Import more, quite frankly, than we even export in terms of the finished products that we use at the pump bed. And so we have to see both ways, as I have said. And every time that has happened, we've seen the impact in reduced prices at the pump. Yes, I think that. So there's a point in what the minister said. But we see increased production. He also talked about 10 projects coming up and the possibility of increasing oil production and increasing gas production in the coming years. So I think it's, on the whole, it's a good news. And the reason you see these approvals is because people are seeing real results in the very difficult decisions we are making, whether it's deregulation, the downstream sector, whether it is basically making sure that we address the long-term reforms of our distribution sector, whether it is really taking steps to make sure we address the critical challenge in the upstream, which is making sure we have a cheaper fuel source in terms of gas. Those are very important, and I think the response you are getting from this institution is that Ghana is really taking bold steps that will yield real results for our country in the long term.
To some international news, Apple has reported another jump in profits as demand for iPhones soared, but its shares fell in after-hours trading. Revenue forecasts disappointed analysts. The technology giant sold 47.5 million iPhones in the quarter to 27th June, rising by 35% on a year ago, with Mac computer sales up by 9% to 4.8 million. Chief Executive Tim Cook called it an amazing quarter. Profits rose by 38% to $10.7 billion, while revenue was up by 33% to $49.6 billion. The third quarter is typically the slowest for iPhone sales because many customers put off buying new phones on the expectation of a new model. Despite the strong results, shares fell 6.7% after market trading in New York. Apple is forecasting revenue to be between $49 billion and $51 billion in the fourth quarter. And that's it for business with me, Francisca Kakra-Force. And up next is sports.
We'll move on to away from Kumasi Asante Kotoko. Let's focus on Accra Hearts of Oak because they also have a game this afternoon. A former board member of the team, that's Mr. E.M. Commodore Mensah, says there are signs of the club getting back on track after their current poor run in the Ghana Premier League. Now, the Phobians are struggling in the league as they lie in the relegation bracket with just 26 points after 22 match days. They have lost 3 successive league games, and that is making their survival chances very slim. But Commodore Mensah says there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Without going into details, I think the signals that we are seeing are very encouraging. This is a family matter, but I can tell you that the signals coming from them are very, very encouraging. With all due respect, nobody has sacked anybody, but if for one reason or the other, administrative reasons, we've classified some people as old directors, new directors, we still belong to the family. The good thing I can say that so far, they are giving assurances that they are not interested in formal positions. They just want to come and help Hearts of Oak move from where it is now.
So that was Mr. Commodore Mensah. He's a former board member of Accra Hearts of Oak. Well, Hearts is not the only team playing in this afternoon's Premier League, and we can now look at the fixtures. BA United struggling. BA United. This game promises to be very interesting because BA United are in the relegation bracket, same as Accra Great Olympics. So the two will battle it out at the Simeone Coronation Park, and Wafa will play host to Kumasi Asante Kotoko at the Soga Corporate Park. Brekum Chelsea informed Brekum Chelsea takes on Liberty Professionals, and Mediama SC will host Bichim United at the Takwa TNA Park, and Interlice will be at Tema to play Hazakes. There is Wa All Stars, Idiana Stars in Wa, and Accra Hearts of Oak. The game you heard
Mr. Commodore Mensah just spoke about, they will face Heart of Lions. That game actually is being played at the Cape Coast Stadium because of their ban. They are banned by virtue of what their fans did to their interim ban. The Ghana Football Association handed them after some fans threw some missiles to the referee in their game against Bechem at the Accra Stadium somewhere last week. And league leaders Ashanti Gold will take on Edubiase. This will be a local derby. That match will be played at the Obuase Lenkley Stadium. So that's it for me, but make sure you join Nathaniel at 2 for more sports.
You're welcome back from that break, and you're still watching News Today here on Joy News Multi TV. Now, the Chief Fire Officer of the Ghana National Fire Service, Dr. Albert Brown-Gazy, has outlined new policies for acquiring a fire certificate. He outlined the changes in a press briefing held ahead of a task force exercise to inspect fuel stations in the capital for fire safety compliance.
Filling stations. I must say that the exercise is not restricted only to filling stations, but they are in phases. They may be extended also to industries, institutions, countrywide. The regions are also supposed to be the same, and I'm sure they are embarking on it. Special task forces have been formed, as you're all aware, and they are going around specifically to identify the risk and the hazardous conditions prevailing in these institutions. That of the filling station, I've had a report from the inspection team and the task force, and the report had revealed a lot of improper housekeeping measures which has to be put in order. We have a situation where some of the inlet valves are leaking, some of them the extinguishers are not there. You have a situation also where the occupancy per se is not to acceptable preventive standards. And we are addressing all these things. The exercise is not aimed at victimizing anybody or castigating anybody, but it's supposed to address issues of lack of safety practices which everybody seems to be concerned about.
The annual Airtel Adum Praise has been launched. Now, the 2015 edition is to be headlined by United States-based gospel musician Hezekiah Walker. The concert, which brings together lovers of Christian music to worship live, will be held at the Press Dome on September 12. Senior sales manager of the multimedia group, Edward Anti, tells Joy News this year's theme will be based on praise.
The theme basically is because we've gone through a lot this year as a country, as a people, even as a business, multimedia business. We want to thank God for all the things that He has done for us, taking us through the year up to this point, and for what He's going to do for us the following year. You know that this is our 20th anniversary as a business, so we want to add all these things to it and say and thank God for how far He has brought us. So this year, the main focus will be on a lot of praise. We want people to have a good time in the presence of God, not just for the entertainment of it, but to enjoy the presence of God as it is, and then to expect bountifully from Him. The headline artist will be Hezekiah Walker, who is a bishop of one of the biggest churches in the U.S., Brooklyn, New York precisely, is coming with a 21-man band, choir, and this year we are expecting a huge crowd, a lot of people in the auditorium. So what we are going to advise is that people should buy their tickets on time. We are going to make available the tickets quite early so that people can buy the tickets. We will share the ticket venues early enough for people to get in.
Digital manager of Airtel, partners of the concert, Natasha Papo, told Joy News there will be special packages for patrons this year.
You get a 10% discount if you buy it on Airtel Money, and we are actually giving out free tickets on our social media platforms. So you come onto Airtel Ghana on Facebook, on Twitter and Instagram, and you get to win free tickets to the event. Also at the event, we are going to make use of a hashtag Airtel Adum Praise. So when you get in there, use the hashtag, whatever you say will be projected on the screen, provided you use the hashtags, your pictures you take, everything will be projected for everybody to see. It's going to be like a live feed where everything is going on. So, and we'll be giving a direct transmission on social media as well for all those who will not be able to make it. They can actually use the hashtag to follow the program. Yeah, basically you're just going to have an area where people can come in and take pictures. So you come in there, you take pictures, and then those pictures will be featured on our social media platforms. Plus, if you buy on Airtel Money, you get to have that special treatment where when you come in, you don't have to join the queue. You just show us your ticket, your code number, where we'll direct you to a special place. You go have a seat. You don't have to mix with the crowd like people will say.
Well, where and how to get tickets will be announced in coming days on all multimedia platforms, and I'm so looking forward to this year's Ideshiba. That'll be it for the entertainment news segment, proudly brought to you by Airtel. Actor and comedian Bill Cosby has filed for court sanctions against a woman who accused him of sexual assault in 2005, claiming she leaked a deposition transcript to a newspaper. Andrea Constant sued Mr. Cosby but settled for an undisclosed sum. Excerpts from his testimony on Saturday, which detailed how he pursued women, were released. Mr. Cosby, 78, is facing a series of sexual assault accusations dating back to the 1970s. He has always maintained his innocence and has never been criminally charged. Well, that'll be it for news today here on Joy News Multi TV. My name is Kwabna Chenchen. For more news, do well to log on to myjoyonline.com. Enjoy the rest of our broadcast.